Welcome to New York's number 2 sports show. The Rangers get off the schneid. They start out 2025 with a win. They beat the Boston Bruins by a score of 2-1, and it was thanks to Jonathan Quick that they did so. So Jonathan Quick earning his 399th NHL win, makes 32 saves, and he was in because Igor Shesterkin is on IR. They're calling it an upper body injury. I'm guessing it's concussion related due to the fact that there was a collision in that Florida Panther game, the last game, where Lindgren kind of caused the collision. I think the player he hit was Sam Bennett. Could be wrong on that, but that's just a guess. Just based on what we saw last game. He finished the game, didn't seem much worse for wear, but was placed on IR, and so that means that he'll be out for at least about a week or so. And you never know with those things. It could be a lot longer than that, but at bare minimum, you're going to see a good amount of Jonathan Quick and maybe a little bit of Louis Domingue, who was called up to be the backup, and figure this weekend with a back-to-back set. I would venture to guess that Quick will almost certainly start against the Washington Capitals, and then Domingue will face the Blackhawks. But Quick, again, in a year that has been really bad for the Rangers, Jonathan Quick has been one of the bright spots. You know, when he's been in there, it seems to have led to some success for the team. And Quick's record on the year, which again can be misleading, it is 6-4. So, you know, and a 2.54 goals against average and a 913 save percentage. So, look, definitely one of the better backup goalies in the league, has a ton of experience. You wonder how he would be if he really was given like a heavy workload. I don't know at this stage in his career if that would be something that could maybe throw his game up a bit. But at this point, he really was the reason. And the Rangers, they played okay. I didn't think they played great. They weren't bad. But as we've seen, when the Rangers take a lead, they're mostly able to hold it. May not be pretty, but that's just been the case. When they score the first goal, when they have a lead after the first period, lead going into the third, they win those games. And so now I think they're 15-1 when they are leading after two. That one loss being to the Carolina Hurricanes. And with the Bruins, you could tell that they were the better team. For them, there's just not enough offensive punch after the top guys, right? After Marchand and Pasternak, Elias Lindholm, you know, like, and there's some others as well. Like they have hardworking players, and they're typically sound defensively. Jeremy Swayman's had a bit of an off year, but when he's right, is definitely one of the better goaltenders. You have Charlie McAvoy on the back end. So like the Bruins, like they're going to be one of those fringe playoff teams that as of now, if you had to guess, I think they'll probably sneak in there, but they're not awfully impressive. And again, I think that they controlled the play, but the Rangers were able to, you know, take advantage of a couple of Bruin mistakes in the first and kind of just ride that to victory. And, you know, I guess I'll say it right here, but then we'll go into it, you know, when we recap the game. But yeah, goals scored by Mika Zibanejad and Brett Berard. So Zibanejad scores his first goal in 9 games. Needed that one. And, you know, really, it was a goal where it probably would have been Riley Smith's. If Zibanejad never touches it, it probably goes in. But he makes sure it does. The puck was riding on the goal line. And so Mika scores there. And then later on in the period, on a 2-on-1 opportunity, it would be Berard scoring his first goal at Madison Square Garden. So, and then the Bruins scored in the second period. They had really good opportunities in that second, especially, and a great save by Jonathan Quick on Charlie McAvoy with about 5.5 minutes left in the second to keep that lead. And they hang on for the win. So now they're 17-19-1. So let's first discuss, again, some roster stuff. And already mentioned, obviously, the Igor Shesterkin implications and what that means. And again, we're going to see a lot of Jonathan Quick for the most part until Igor is ready to return. I wouldn't suspect he'll be out for very long, but if it is a concussion, those things are very hard to predict. So we'll see. Want to mention Zach Jones on defense. So Jones had he was a healthy scratch again. That is really, the lineup is kind of taking shape. And if you think about it, Jones kind of lost his spot in the shuffle of everything that kind of went down. So Obviously, if you look at the defense and where it was at the beginning of the season to now, in a way, Borgen took the Trouba spot, and Vakanainen kind of took the Zach Jones spot, right? And so, and with shades of gray, because obviously Victor Mancini was like, there were times when Zach Jones was a scratch, even before these things went down a little bit. But Victor Mancini, Mancini was in there a good amount. And then once Lindgren came back from injury, then it became a situation where they were kind of just flipping between Mancini and Jones as the healthy scratch. Ruido was up for a little bit at one point later on. But Zach Jones is the seventh defense right now. And he really seems like a pretty positive guy who tries to say the right things. In an interview, I guess, with Larry Brooks with the New York Post, or I'm not sure how many. This may have actually been not so exclusive. This could have been with a bunch of beat reporters, but the fact is that Zach Jones was saying how it fucking sucks. He feels like he's rotting away. He wants to become a full-time player. And it was more than that, honestly. And now for his sake, I feel as if he could be on the outs sooner than later. Now with the Kakko, trade, that happened not so far after he was a bit critical through the media. And so now Zach Jones does it. And if he gets traded, then you kind of know that with the Kakko one, that it wasn't a total coincidence. But I understand Jones for being upset. It's not as if he had been playing overly well, but I get it. And there's there's a couple of arguments to be made, right? Like, let's take the Lindgren or Miller side out of it, right? Two players that have been with this team for a while, different situations with both of them. Miller being someone that in theory could be here in the long run, maybe. Lindgren is to me kind of on the outs, but it's someone that's been here even longer than Miller had. But there's also, so on the one hand, it's like those guys have struggled at different points. Why are they never on the chopping block to be a healthy scratch, right? That's one side. But then the other side, to me, the one that kind of makes more of an argument is Vakanainen, who's a steady, solid third pairing defenseman, right? Like, he is a guy that is more of a sixth defenseman than like a healthy scratch. But the point is, he hasn't established himself in the Rangers. And would it shock anyone or change anyone's perspective if Vakanainen were healthy scratch? I don't think that's a huge deal, like, to get Zach Jones in the lineup. But especially after this win, I don't know when Jones comes back in. So, again, it's tough for a young player like that, who it was a Ranger draft pick. It just doesn't feel great as far as what is going to happen with him. But yeah, some pretty scathing remarks from Jones. And again, good for him. As much as in some ways may have not been in his best interest to say that, but he knows where he stands with this organization, and it's really not in a great place anyway. So a fresh start could do him some good, but I also think it's good for him to get a chance, and maybe there's a world where after the deadline, depending on how the defense looks, then at that point he'll get a better look, but I'm not sure if he'll be around at that point. So that's the defense. And then for the forwards, it's been pretty much status quo as far as they're concerned, and Johnny Brodzinski continues to ride the pine as a healthy scratch. And just, again, looking at some of the ice times, it's very clear, for better or worse, and I would almost say for worse, although I'm not going to make a big deal about it in a win, there's a clear divide in terms of top six and bottom six. And same thing with the defense. Like, it is clear Vakanainen and Schneider is very much the third pair. And that does make sense when you look at the players, but I don't know, should it be as drastic as it is? Right? Like, is the Lindgren Fox Miller Borgen pairs that much better than Vakanainen and Schneider? Maybe so. And I think in this game, that may have actually been the case. I think that the Vakanainen and Schneider pair is probably the weakest of the three, but still. And then on the other side with the forwards, it's like that Zibanejad and Trocheck lines are definitely getting the lion's share of opportunities, and the Heat line isn't. And you know what? Maybe a little bit can be said, a little bit, not much, that in a game where they were leading, they're going to lean more on the Zibanejad line for defensive reasons. I could understand that. Obviously, the argument to that is, well, Mika Zibanejad's like a minus 22 or thereabouts this season. But I think that still at this point in their careers, Zibanejad is certainly more dependable defensively than Hedel. I kind of want to bite my tongue saying that, but it's true. And so, kind of just thinking this through, maybe that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. And also, that's maybe me letting Laviolette off the hook for the fact that there is no valid reasoning as for why that is. That all said, I thought the Zibanejad line was better in this game. Weren't perfect at all. Had some pretty bad shifts in the mix of it all, but they seemed like they were better. We don't always say that, but in this game, I think that it was probably true. So let's discuss this one. A lot of it we've already said, but Jonathan Quick versus Jeremy Swayman. And all it took was, again, a couple of Bruin miscues in the first period to give the Rangers that lead. And again, the Rangers are so dependent on whether they're leading or trailing. It's very simple. And Ranger games they don't go to overtime. Ranger games get decided in regulation. And if they are leading going into the third, they will almost always win. And vice versa. If they're down, they're not coming back. This is one of those games where they do take the lead. And at 9:48, it would be a goal by Mika Zibanejad, his 7th goal of the season, assisted by Riley Smith and Chris Kreider. So Kreider gets his 2nd assist of the season. This is a play where Keandre Miller flips the puck from his own end, and the Bruin defensemen, neither of them are able to get it. They jump up for it. They're unable to get it. But Jeremy Swayman's back there, so it shouldn't be a big deal. However, not a very smart pass by Swayman. Tries to shoot it off the boards. It's not like he shot it towards the middle of the ice, but he didn't have the numbers. There was more Rangers than Bruins at that point. He probably should have went to the other side and he probably should have taken more of a conservative approach in that instance. And so Kreider gets the puck, passes it to Zibanejad in the middle of the ice. Zibanejad takes a save, stopped by Swayman, but he's not able to corral it. Riley Smith takes a backhand shot, and it's going past Swayman into the net. And it was going to go into that, I think, in all likelihood, but Zibanejad's there, and good for him for being in good position to just bang it home to leave no doubt. So it's a goal for Zibanejad again, his first goal in 9 games, and only 7 goals on the season when the Rangers are not quite at the halfway point, but not too far away either. So again, the eye test and the numbers for Zibanejad, not great, but he gets the goal here. Then a little more than 3 minutes later in game action, Brett Berard scores his 3rd goal of the season, but his first goal at Madison Square Garden, assisted by Philip Hedel. So this is a nice play by Hedel, where he's able to chip the puck past the Bruin defenseman Mason Lohrei, and it becomes a 2-on-1 with Berard on the right with the puck and Cooley to his left. And Berard just decides to just snap it by Swayman. And it was over the glove side, top shelf, really nice shot by Berard. And we've seen, I think the couple goals, at least 2 of the goals that Berard have had, if not all 3, but at least 2 that I've remembered, have come in these sort of odd man rush situations. So, Berard, I think he's known for getting a lot of greasy goals, but we've seen a little bit of skill as well. So again, I like that he's getting somewhat of an opportunity. The ice time for him isn't that high, but yet he is part of that top 9, and he is kind of essentially taking the spot of Kakko, right? So when I was talking about the defense and who replaces who, for the forwards, it's pretty much as it had been, except again, it's Berard for Kakko. And so that makes it 2-0, and that would eventually be the game-winning goal for the Rangers. So give that to Berard as well. So the Rangers take a 2-0 lead there. I thought that the Rangers, I don't know, it's hard to say what was their best period because each kind of brought about different situations, but I thought that the Rangers played a pretty sound first period. That was probably their sharpest as far as chances allowed, although, we'll discuss it. Second period was where I felt like Boston had their most high-quality chances. Now, keep in mind they were down 2-0, so that's naturally going to happen as well. But I thought the Bruins took their game to another level in the second period. The only periods that occurred in this game were in the second. At 3:41, Keandre Miller, delay of game, so not a good penalty there by Keandre. But luckily for him, about 30 seconds into the Bruin power play, Pasternak high sticks Ryan Lindgren. So it's 4-on-4 for a while. So again, in terms of power play time for both teams, again, you're looking at like about 30 seconds, honestly, even less than that each. So not a game that really had much special teams involvement. But again, Quick was making good save after good save when it was 2-0 and when it was 2-1. So the Bruins do score one goal. It's Elias Lindholm scoring his 7th goal of the season, assisted by Pasternak and McAvoy. Really nice play by Pasternak, where he has kind of enough room to make a move. I felt like, Fox was kind of away from him, and Pasternak kind of wraps around the net, a really nice pass, quick pass, and he finds Lindholm, who barely beats Riley Smith, and Lindholm kind of goes high as Quick was going low and scores. And so, that was a move that Joe Sacco, the interim head coach for the Bruins, and they've had some success since they fired Jim Montgomery. They had Pasternak and Marchand at that point together, and that did seem to help. You can go for the balance attack, but they kind of went for more of a top-heavy approach. And the Bruins score there. And, again, there was a lot of good opportunities, but Quick was just stonewalling them just about every time. And the big one really was McAvoy, where he was wide open in the, near the left circle, and Quick just moves over from his left to right to make that stop. I think it was a blocker save. Really good stop by Jonathan Quick. And again, one win away for him from reaching 400 NHL wins. Really remarkable. The level of play that he's had at this point in his career is just dedication and just shows how special he is. I mean, like, with him being with the Kings for so long, you just don't see it. Obviously, we saw him in the Stanley Cup final in 2014, but really, you gain an appreciation for it with him being a Ranger these last couple of seasons. So we go to the third period, and the Rangers, they played a pretty decent third. Wasn't great. There were some moments where the Bruins probably had, too good of looks than Peter Laviolette would be comfortable with, but ultimately they did keep the Bruins to the outside, and they did make life difficult. There was a stretch where the Bruins had to take a bunch of icings. It was pretty well done by them. And again, if nothing else, they've shown that capability. It's not as if, and I'm going to use the Islanders as a comparison. The Islanders have just really, in late game situations, blown leads. They've been unable in a tie game to get it to overtime. It's been a bit of a disaster for them in late game situations. The Rangers, it's not so much that. It's really over the course of these games where they're just really being soundly outplayed. But when they do have a lead, by hook or by crook, they're able to get it done. And a lot of that is just good goaltending. And with Jonathan Quick, it feels like some of the best moments this season have been involving Jonathan Quick. So third period, they're able to seal the deal. And the Bruins pulled the goalie. Rangers had some chances. In this game, I felt like the Trocheck line, some opportunities. Lafreniere being involved a little bit. Panarin, pretty quiet for him in this game. But yeah, they had some chances that Swayman stopped. But, 6-on-5, I felt like the Bruins didn't generate a whole lot. Rangers had a chance at an empty net goal situation. Didn't score then, but yeah, they get it done. So they break the 4-game losing streak. They are now 5-15 in the last 20 games. And now here's the thing they have to get over. And I think it's going to be tough at Washington, is the ability to win 2 games in a row. That has not happened since this 5-15 stretch occurred. Their last 2-game winning streak was when they beat Seattle and Vancouver. And then they followed it up by losing to Calgary, losing to Edmonton, and so on and so forth. And things really just tailed off for the Rangers. So tough test to do it at Washington, who, again, they're coming off of a shootout loss to the Minnesota Wild. Alex Ovechkin is back. That'll be a Saturday matinee game, or an early start. I think it's about noon that puck drop will be. So Rangers had a tough time at Washington earlier in the season, even when the Rangers were winning at that point, and the Capitals really outplayed them. Going to be interesting to see what the Rangers do. For me, I'm still not feeling very good about this team. A win against Washington can maybe shift the way I'm thinking slightly. But after watching this game again, it was a great performance by Quick. Rangers did some good things, but in no way, shape, or form do I think, okay, yeah, this is going to be the turnaround. I mean, look, it was the first win of 2025, 1-0 in the new calendar year, right? You can kind of grasp onto that if you want, but I don't think that's going to mean a whole lot. So But yeah, they come home, they pick up the win, they beat the Boston Bruins by a score of 2-1. Jonathan Quick earns his 399th NHL win. He was the star of the game with his 32 saves.